guys, how's it going?
Hey.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
Very excited. I'm going to jump in with some random fun questions like we do for Tom here. So Tom, tell me about you. What's something that you just really like to do the old-fashioned way?
Let's see. One thing I really like to do the old-fashioned way, I think it's just like a habit, is like washing dishes. Really? Especially like pots and pans. Because like I hate like crusty food.
Yeah.
Especially like, you know, a big pasta dish or something like that, or like a cookie sheet or something like that. Like I have to scrape it off so I know like it is clean. So like I got like scrubby pads and dish soap and all that stuff, and like those type of things I will always
Really?
hand wash.
Wow. Okay.
Nice. I can understand that though.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, because
like,
when you take it out of the dishwasher and then you have to run it back through, you're just like,
Exactly.
Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Oh, exactly. And my wife's like, just toss it in. It's fine. It'll just power wash. I'm like, our dishwasher is not a power washer. It's not just going to blow it off. Like, you have to actually scrub it off.
Yeah. I can understand that. It's a good answer. So what is the farthest that you've ever been from home, and maybe why, if you're open for sharing?
The farthest I've been is Sydney, Australia. During my last year, my senior year at Oxford University, part of it, in order to graduate, is like you either had to do an internship or study abroad. And I found a program that did both.
Nice.
So I got to travel to Sydney. I think I was there for 5 months. And I did an internship with the Australian Theatre for Young People. So basically like Minnesota Children's Theatre.
That's amazing.
But in Australia.
Yeah.
And it's where Nicole Kidman got her start. A couple other like Australian actors like did classes there. And so it was really fun. One day I was part of like the archivers going through old photos. And so there's a photo of like Nicole Kidman back when she was dating Tom Cruise, and they were there for a banquet. And so, yeah, it was like really fun just getting to know like the Australian theater side of it.
That's really cool. How did you love Sydney? Is it not just amazing?
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, I want to say like it was maybe like the size of Chicago, but you can actually get somewhere. Like the Metro Transit over there was phenomenal. Like I lived, I guess if you want to, for Minnesota folks, the equivalent of like Bloomington, like just outside of Bloomington, further south, trying to get into the cities.
Right.
And I could do that easily.
Oh, yeah.
Because just the buses and subways were just
like the double-decker subways.
Yeah.
Those are awesome.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. And then over there, I also studied stage combat with Fight Master Kyle Rowling. And Kyle Rowling is the guy who doubled as Count Dooku for Star Wars 2 and 3.
What?
And so he also helped, kind of create those fighting styles in a way. And I believe he also did, he was the fight choreographer for Wanted. For like the spinning bullets.
Yeah.
So he was, so I got to train with him while I was down there as well.
So you're telling me Dooku didn't do his own stunts, like the flips and everything?
Not so much. But what Kyle created is that he created Count Dooku's style as more of a like a fencer. Because that's the style that Christopher Lee had. He had that fencing background for years. Because Christopher Lee used to do sword fights with Errol Flynn and Basil Rathbone back in those days. Oh. And so he had that experience. And so naturally, Christopher Lee just had that natural poise of a fencer. And so I was like, I can use that. Hence why Count Dooku's blade is curved. It's like a saber.
Oh.
It's like a saber hilt. So it's a lot more point work rather than slashy. You see a lot of lightsabers do.
That's fascinating.
That's good to know, yeah.
Yeah, that is super cool.
The more you know.
There you
right?
go.
Right?
You just learned something. We're now an educational
Exactly.
show.
Okay, well, you're clearly very talented.
Well, thank you.
But tell me about a random, maybe unexpected, fun, silly talent that you do have.
I kind of count myself as an ice cream connoisseur.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
My family used to own a little ice cream shop down in Egan a couple years back. Just due to my mom had a little mild heart attack, and the shop was kind of owning us, and we're like, this isn't worth it. So we kind of had to, long story short.
Right.
But before that, we as a family studied on how ice cream is made. and there's so many different types. And then we even went to Italy to learn how gelato is made. And so we learned under gelato masters and how they're created and all that stuff. And so when we came back, like we were creating our own, and then we eventually we couldn't eat anyone else's because we could taste the difference. Like, for example, Kemp's. Right? The reason why Kemp's is so cheap is because 75% of it is air. If you add 1% more of air into Kemp's, you have whipped cream.
Really?
Which is why, because so the amount of product in Kemp's is so little. That's why they charge so less.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Does that mean that it's actually better for you? So it's okay if I eat more?
But then the sugar
add
count,
1% more air.
Yeah,
well, now you're just bringing me down.
So if you just watch a bowl of ice cream and it just melts so quickly, it's because it's just air.
Interesting.
Leaving. So then just the cream just sits.
That makes sense.
So if you get a bowl of ice cream and just on a normal day and it sits and it keeps for a long period of time, that's a good product. So for a while we consider our competitors with Grand Ole Creamery, Sebastian Joe's, Izzy's.
Yep.
I think Izzy's used, because we did our digging with our competitors.
Oh yeah.
Because we all got the same mix from the same people.
Right.
And
Right.
so Izzy's got the same cream product as we did as well, and so we knew how. And then of course we would eat it, just because we could taste the difference. And we're like, okay, so this is about a 75% overrun, and blah blah blah, and all this stuff. Okay, so it's like, okay, Izzy's is cool because they gonna get the same gist that we are making, and so yeah. But it's like I can't go to ice cream shops with my friends because I eat it and I'm just like, okay.
Oh.
Any ice cream shops at all? Or?
It depends. I mean, I personally love the mom and pop shops. Like if they make their product and back, I'll fully support that type of thing. But I personally can taste the difference, and I kind of can tell okay, so they didn't use a blast freezer, which then freezes the product down to negative 46 degrees. So as soon as it comes out of the machine, you throw it in what's called a blast freezer. And that minimizes the ice crystals. And the ice crystals are what can damage a product. So for example, Cold Stone. Cold Stone masks, so when the ice cream is sitting in the case, it's partially melted. It's scoopable that it can still move. But as soon as they throw it back on that cold slab, it freezes, forming larger ice crystals. And ice crystals is what really damages the product. And it ruins the flavor, ruins the texture. You almost have to chew it instead of just allowing it to just melt on your palate.
Okay.
So they mask it by throwing a whole bunch of candy and toppings and all this stuff, and they mix it all together.
Candy.
I know, right?
Is that why they slap it around so much and
just slap it around? Yeah. Just to so if you really look at it, there's just these huge ice crystals, and that's what really ruins ice cream. So by throwing it in a blast freezer, you minimize the amount of time it takes to build those ice crystals up, keeping the product pure.
Okay. So is there a place that you would recommend in the Twin Cities for people who maybe love ice cream?
Love ice cream?
To go?
So, of course, the big staples, Grand Ole Creamery, Izzy's, and Sebastian Stan's are probably my top three, I'll go to. Because, I know how their product is made. I know what's taken. Just a little fun fact, too. Actually, it was probably last year. So the ice cream shop was closed and all this stuff. And my family and I were out in St. Paul. And we're like, let's go to Grand Ole Creamery. Why not? and because we had to kind of shut down our store and stuff. We had to sell away a bunch of our product and our equipment and stuff. And we walk into Grand Ole Creamery, and I look over at the trash bins, and they're these black trash bins that have little compartments and stuff. And I'm like, those look really familiar. And then so back at our store, they were just black, and so everyone had a hard time finding where the trash bin was. So my grandfather made these little plexiglass trash bins, or trash signs right on it, and he placed it on them. And I walked over to the trash can, and I looked at the little detail. It was the exact same thing. So Grand Ole Creamery bought our little trash things when we shut down. So I'm like, okay,
that's adorable.
At least it's going to a good place.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Inherit the win. No.
Right. Yeah.
No kidding. So here's a question for you.
Yes.
There's a place, and I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's something about Nelson's ice cream.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. What grade would you give that place?
I'll be honest. I've actually never been to Nelson's. I've heard I've heard good things.
Okay.
From other people. I personally haven't been in there.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I'm never actually in that area that often
Right.
for me to actually like go in. and
Which
that kind
makes
of stuff.
sense.
So
Yeah. Okay.
But from other folks that I've heard who've loved our product, they also love that as well. So
Okay. Maybe.
to each their own.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, like, wine connoisseurs are like enophiles, right? Or whatever that is. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But what would an ice cream connoisseur be? What
Oh, geez.
What
It's
is
a
that?
good question. On the spot, Tom.
Yeah. Do you know?
Cremos? I don't know.
Cremos.
I don't know. Like winos, cremos? I don't know.
Oh,
Okay.
man. I love it.
Not that you need to know the history of every cow.
No, of course
that
not.
ever
No. Like,
produced.
this cream came from the pasture in Madison, Wisconsin on a bright, sunny day. And
Yeah. Can you tell the
Exactly.
difference between California
No, I
cows
can't.
and Wisconsin? No? Okay. All right, Tom. We're going to start in on your film history now.
Wonderful.
So tell us, first off, just in general, because we'll get into more detail in
Sure.
a bit. What do you do within the film community, the film world?
Within the film community, I work as a fight choreographer / stunt coordinator. I also have the hat of as a weapons tech. So when you use blank firearms or anything like that, I'm the guy responsible for that. And recently have now become a stunt rigger. So Saturday night I was on set for a film called Dark Cloud.
Ooh. I've heard of that.
Yeah, and so not to give anything away, but they wanted a very specific shot of almost like a GoPro effect of how like when the GoPro is looking at the athlete, they're the one stationary and the world is moving around them.
Oh, yeah.
So they wanted the actress to basically do like a little backfall onto like cement, concrete, or like brick, like a brick street type of thing. But they wanted her stationary while the floor kind of comes up to her.
Oh, okay.
And so someone built this rig for the camera to go on that we kind of lashed to her torso. And so then I got my stunt equipment and harnesses and stuff and basically used pulley systems to basically slowly descend her down. So she was stationary standing up. And as long as she kept her core and knees locked out and, someone down by her feet so then her feet didn't slip out, we just slowly descended her down to the ground. And then they filmed that at a high a film rate in hopes that speed ramp or that kind of thing. They didn't really go into much detail on what effects they're going to do with it.
Right.
They just told me we just needed something to descend her down to the ground. And so that's kind of what I
Safely.
came up with. Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome. That sounds
Yeah.
really cool. Have you done a lot of that, or is that more common now, or do you think it's going to become more common?
I think it'll probably become a little more common for me. Sun rigging was something relatively new. I also work for the Local 13, which is the IATSE stagehands for the theater side, where I do a lot of ground rigging for that. So I'm the one setting up, the baskets and all that stuff to then hoist up to the top riggers.
Right.
So then they can get all the heavy equipment for rock concerts and that kind of stuff down. And so then Jason Hilton, who was the head rigger and kind of one of the big stunt coordinators here in town, he did the Vikings commercial for the Super Bowl.
Oh, cool.
So when the Viking ship was on the back of the Dodge Ram truck, he was the stunt rigger for that commercial.
Nice.
And so Jason was called in to be the head rigger for the horror thriller Harbinger that was filmed up in Chisholm, Minnesota. So he brought me on as one of his riggers. And so I got to learn a little bit more, but then have my knowledge from the Local 13 to then rig as well. Granted, I wasn't rigging, a 1-ton equipment, steel beams or anything above their heads. I was just, rigging a little stunt for someone to get slammed up against the wall and that kind of thing. But
Still.
yeah, I had so much fun doing it that it was just a wonderful new little hat that I was able to kind of put on.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's super cool.
Well, yeah. What got you into stunt or acting or stunt? Which came first?
So, first was acting. I went to Augsburg University and got my bachelor's as a fine arts degree, as most of us do, and with a focus on performance directing, but then an undertone of stage combat. A buddy of mine did a study abroad in London and got to do some shows at the Globe Theatre.
Oh, wow.
And he learned stage combat over there and came back and was like, want to do a little bit more. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Like, I want to, like, sounds pretty cool. But I didn't catch that bug yet. It wasn't until I was writing a Stanislavski paper. Augsburg's program is a very classical style acting. So we do Stanislavski, Chekhov, Laban, all that fun stuff. And so I was working on Chekhov paper. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so dry, so boring. Like, is this all that acting is? And I had FX on in the background. It was like the Bourne Ultimatum. And they're showing like behind the scenes and like how they did stuff and stunts. Like one where, Matt Damon's stunt double, basically running on a roof, jumps through a window. And then it's the shot where the camera's following him and jumps off the roof with him. They actually got 2 stunt guys. So the stunt guy to do the little parkour off the roof through the window, and then they rigged another stunt guy who had some DP experience so he could stay in focus to run off the roof and jump with him. So then they rigged the camera guy so as he was jumping off the roof, he would basically just slowly descend down and not wreck the camera. But they needed someone who could get the shot but who was also willing to jump off a roof.
Yeah.
So I watched that. I'm like, I want to do that. Like, how do I get involved in that? And
wow, what a contrast! You're studying Stanislavski.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a Bourne Ultimatum on
Chekhov,
TV.
and I'm like, I want to do stunts.
Chekhov, yeah.
And at the time, Jason was running a stunt team in Egan called Tumblr Monster Stunt Team. And so I contacted him, and he's like, hey, I really want to get more involved in stunts. What can I do? And he's like, he was running kind of 2 classes. One kind of for fun, general classes, do some stunt work, have some fun. And then one was actual kind of like a stunt team. Took it a little bit more seriously and a little more hard hitting and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So he's like, come to the general ones first. Get you some, reps in there, and then we'll see how things go. And because sometimes the classes were so small, it just kind of turned into like one-on-one with Jason and I. And so then eventually Jason's like, yeah, why don't you come hang out? Why don't you come do some stuff with us? So we did a couple gigs as a team. Our biggest one we did was Memorial Day, several years back in 2009. It was the tale of 2 wars, the World War II and Afghan War. Jonathan Bennett was in it. I forget, it's another really well-known actor as well. But it was like the biggest news because it was like the biggest SAG film that came to town since Arnold Schwarzenegger's like Jingle All the Way or something like that. So kind of did that for a little while. And then through there, I learned about the Society of American Fight Directors, joined up with them, took workshop classes across the nation. And now I'm at a point in my career that I'm now going back to those workshops and now teaching at those workshops.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's super cool.
Yeah. So then here in town, I dabble in both theater and film
Okay.
are kind of my 2 avenues that I kind of take. And recently, like, I kind of had to say goodbye to my acting career.
Oh, no.
So, like, I think it was like February. I finally was like, you know what? No. So like all the profiles that you create online, like I either like shut them down because they weren't worth it. Or I think like on my Minnesota film board, I completely changed it all to now stunts. And like stunt coordinator, weapons tech, I think are like my 2 categories that I selected for that, because that's what I kept getting called for.
Right.
Because when I started out, I was told like I have to keep those separate. I cannot let my stunt world and acting world collide.
Interesting.
Because the ramification was like, if I was an actor and I was going off for a stunt gig, it's like, oh well, here's this actor who thinks he can do stunts. Or vice versa. If I'm a stunt guy and there's an acting role, I'm like, oh, here's this stunt guy who thinks he can be an actor.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So that's the kind of the ramifications that I ran into sometimes. However, through the Society of American Fight Directors, we specifically train to be actor combatants. We do what's called skill and proficiency tests, where we get 30 hours of training with a certain weapon, and then we actually have to perform that weapon with a scene. So like whether it be TV show, film, theater, a play, anything like that, we have to perform it in front of a fight master. And then the fight master will then adjudicate it and give us either like a pass or fail rating. 9 times out of 10, if your teacher that you're with is good, it's always going to be a pass because like the teacher should know what to do.
Yeah.
But then there's one more step above called a recommended pass. Basically meaning that when the fight master watched it, like it was like watching an actual play. That the fight master would recommend you, like say we're doing, a rapier fight for our test. And the fight master gave you recommended, basically saying, yeah, you'd be a fantastic Tybalt, or you'd be a fantastic Mercutio. Two guys who can act wonderfully and fight at the same time.
Okay.
So that's what I'm trained as. So I still have my acting chops, I want to say, but I'm a fighter. So someone who can act in the scene, but then knows how to take a punch, knows how to throw a punch, for those types of scenes.
Right, yeah. You aren't like pulled out of the scene just to then do the fight.
Sadly, that's what we see a lot. Sometimes we see wonderful dialogue between two or more characters about this intense moment, and the tension's building, and then when it gets to the fight, it's like we're watching a different scene.
Right.
Because we either, especially in theater, once the fight happens, we either see, okay, now we're back to two actors performing choreography, or the choreography just doesn't make sense to the scenario that we just came from. So my job as a choreographer is like, how do I blend that together? How do I then follow what the director wants to do, where he's going with it, and then how do I create those moves that still tell that same story at the end there?
Do you think part of that, is from kind of what we were discussing earlier before we were recording, not having enough time with the actors to really go over the choreography and practice and all of that?
A lot of times when you see bad choreography, it's normally because the choreographer didn't have enough time to properly train those actors. And sometimes actors just aren't movers. They can act really well. The biggest joke that we have as fight choreographers is that, for production of Romeo and Juliet, your best fighter is always Romeo for some strange reason. And the person who's playing Tybalt has never picked up a sword in his life, even though Tybalt has 3 fights and only 15 lines.
Yeah.
So it's always seems to be the case because apparently, they really want him. This one actor played him so well, but they don't have any fights, and so they're willing to sacrifice that.
Yeah.
Whereas who cares? Tybalt only has 15 lines. He just has to be a dick.
Yeah.
How hard is that? Just be a dick. You can go do your fights.
Yeah.
And then you can go off stage. If you have enough time, get out of costume, go to the bar, get a drink, and then come back for curtain call.
There you go.
Which I had a professor tell me that's what he did once. He played
did that once.
Yeah.
At Augsburg.
No, not at Augsburg. He was Benvolio, actually.
Oh, okay.
And
wow.
Because Benvolio is in the first half, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
And then he just shows up randomly at the end. So he would say he was doing this regional show, and he was playing, kind of touring across the nation, being Benvolio. And so once his part was done, he'd get out of costume. There's a bar across the street. Go over to the bar. He timed it out perfectly. Sat down, had a beer, checked his watch,
Headed back over.
back over, got back in the costume, and then got ready for the final scene.
That's phenomenal.
Did he ever have a Birdman moment where he was locked out with his underwear?
I don't think he did. No.
Okay. Just checking.
Oh man.
So after you graduated from acting,
right?
I'm putting that in quotations.
Right.
You just went right into stunts, or did you actually do some acting too?
So for a while, I did try both avenues.
Okay.
I pursued my acting career, and then I did, if fight choreography opportunities came up, then I would take those as well. So trying to play both avenues.
And become an ice cream
and
master.
Yeah,
exactly. While
right.
running the family shop and all this stuff all at the same time. And so I tried that for a while, and it worked. I did a couple of theater gigs here and there, but one thing I started noticing is that down the acting path, there wasn't much money. But down the fight choreography, there was a lot more money. And then I also realized, for acting, I can only do 1 show a month. While as a fight choreographer, I could maybe do 4 shows a month because I'm not called every single day. I'm called for maybe 2 days a week for this show and 2 days another for this one. So I could alternate days here and there. So I can do more work, which then means more money. which then means I can pay my bills and my loans. Okay.
There you go.
And so I really focused more on my fight choreography, and acting then kind of became a secondary. Like if it came up, great, but then I really kind of pushed fight choreography until it wasn't until this year that I'm like, you know what? No, like I'm gonna market myself as a fight choreographer. Mm-hmm. If someone wants to hire me as an actor, great. I'll be more than happy to do it. But I'm gonna hustle as a stunt fight choreographer.
Right.
So have you done just the choreography side of it, or have you actually been a stuntman?
Yeah,
like
I've done
in a film.
Yeah, I've done stunts as well. I worked for Peter Park, not Peter Parker. Peter Park.
Close, so close.
Yeah. He's another stunt coordinator here in town. So Jason Hilton and Peter Park are kind of the two big SAG coordinators here in town, outside of Peter Moore. And so I got to know Peter really well, and so he's brought me on a couple film projects. There's a zombie film that happened, and then World War I film called Over There. Peter was actually the reason why I was brought on to Harbinger, because he was a stunt coordinator, then hired Jason as the head rigger, and then because the three of us knew each other, like, yeah, Tom, you should come with us, like, because we trust you. And
Nice.
And so it's kind of through that, and so I've gotten to do stunts, and even through my other fight choreographer colleagues as well. We've all, if we're the choreographer, like, yeah, I want you as my fighter because I trust you and I know you can do some really good stuff. Mm-hmm. And so we just kind of play off of one another. And so I still get to fight, which is fantastic.
Right.
But it's also fun to just kind of create and then watch your friends create those visions that you had in your head.
Yeah.
Great. What have you taken on other roles besides stunts and acting and?
Yeah, so kind of the weapons tech. Some people see stunt coordinator and weapons tech like two totally different things, which I completely understand. I see them actually being very beneficial for each other. Because for me as a fight choreographer for theater, I have to know what weapons my fighters are using. I need to know how they're being taken care of. I need to know the maintenance level of that, so that way they stay safe. That mentality as a fight choreographer for theater, I find translates very well as a weapons tech, especially with dealing with blank firearms. I need to know what the condition the firearm's in. I need to know what kind of blanks we're using. I need to know what action that the director wants to use it for. Does the actor have experience with firearms and all that stuff? And so I found it was a very easy transition that I've now, like, yeah, I'm going to now try to adapt this as another sub gig that I can, submit myself for.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds really interesting. Honestly, what kind of got you going with that part of it?
Yeah, through the Society of American Fight Directors, they also have a theatrical firearms certification. Mm-hmm. And so I learned about firearms, and I got certified with them and learned and understand them. And I'm like, this is really cool. Like, I really had a lot of fun. Like, you get to shoot guns. Like, yeah. It's fun. And then just looking around town, like, there really isn't, looking at the local 490, there isn't anyone in the weapons tech spot. And so, like, I've talked to the president a couple of times, like, hey, how's it going? It's like, oh, if you're interested, apply. And so I'm currently actually working on my application.
Oh, nice.
To be a part of the local 490 as their weapons tech.
That's phenomenal. Well, fingers crossed for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is that your favorite part of the filmmaking process, or do you have a favorite part of, like, within that?
My favorite. That's a good element of it, because it kind of dives into a little bit of that choreography aspect. So I get to feed into that. My favorite is when we actually get to do like a fight scene. To really get to put that on camera is probably one of my favorite parts, especially with a crew who knows how to film an action scene, and with my fighters who are rehearsed and they know what to do, where, they know how to sell it. Like, the camera can move any way it wants to, and my fighters will know exactly how to sell it. Mm. So the camera can move on a dime, and they'll know, okay, cool, camera's over there now. I just need to adjust over here to now sell this punch. Mm-hmm. Even though originally I was stacked here, I now have to angle myself over here to sell that new punch. So that's the favorite. That's my favorite aspect is when we get to see that dance of a DP and my fighters like working together.
Complete collaboration between all departments, basically.
Yeah, that's my favorite part when we get to see those elements, all just working together without really communicating. That you just watch it happen, and it's like you just watch on the monitor. I'm like, yes, like that's exactly what I had in my head, and that was perfect.
Nice.
Awesome.
So, I mean, you do so much. Like, you have so many different roles that you've either done overall or that you are currently doing in the filmmaking process. Is there anything that you maybe haven't started doing that you're interested in dabbling in?
So just recently, I helped teach a couple classes with another colleague, Mike Lepke. And we recently just got done with a fighting for film class. And so a lot of times, Lepke would be the one kind of choreographing, and then I'd be the one, just shooting on my iPhone with a iPhone steady rig. And so I was the DP. And I just found myself like, I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying being an action DP. So that might be something I maybe down the road, like learn a little bit more about the camera and all that stuff, because that's still very foreign to me about how do you get a red all set up and ready to go? I'm like, I don't know. You push that button. Is that it? You turn it on, right? That's all you need to do is just turn it on and it's good to go. So, I mean, I still have a lot more to learn about what it takes to get a camera ready. But I think it'd be fun to be like an action DP. Someone is like, yeah, we got an action scene. Yeah, we need this guy to come in to make sure we can shoot this action sequence.
Absolutely.
No kidding. That would be so cool. So cool.
Do you have like a favorite actor that you love watching or?
Oh, geez, I've
anything.
I've several actors that I just love for various reasons. Huge man crush, Hugh Jackman. His action, like I actually loved him as the Wolverine. Even though the films themselves, they're all right, but what he brought to that character and the movements that he brought was phenomenal. I've thoroughly enjoyed him. Matt Damon as Jason Bourne, and then recently Keanu Reeves with John Wick. Putting in the time to learn all the close quarters combat, judo, jujitsu, and all that stuff, so he can really bring John Wick to life. To make us believe no, this guy is real. He is real.
Do you have a favorite genre other than action for films?
Oh, favorite genre.
Like a secret genre that you're like, I'm an action guy, but I actually secretly love this, even though people don't know.
I love musicals.
Nice.
I love musicals.
Okay.
And I come from a very big Disney family too. So
yes.
I will always go see a Disney movie in theaters, regardless on what it is.
Yes.
And so I'm a huge Disney lover, and so all the recent Disney films, my wife and I will go watch. Of course, we're probably the oldest people there. It's just it's a bunch of families and a couple kids, and then there's my wife and I.
That's awesome though. You can't beat a good classic Disney
you can't.
movie.
No.
You really can't.
Have you progressed in your career, do you think, in film at least, as you've expected thus far, now that you've kind of switched into stunt and choreography?
Yeah, I think I have. I think I kind of had this revelation, I think last week.
Last week?
Actually, yeah. Okay. It kind of hit me.
Timely.
Boom.
I'm actually, because it was probably the first time I got a phone call that someone wanted to hire me. And not through a friend or anything.
Yeah.
This production company just called me out of the blue with no other connection. And so I'm like, I think I took a step in my career. I think I bumped up a level.
Yeah, that's the goal right there.
Yeah. Because normally it's a friend of a friend, oh hey, some of my other friends who work as DPs or PAs or that kind of stuff, and they're, the director's like, well, we need a fight choreographer. And my friend will go, well, I know a guy.
Right,
yeah. That's normally how I've gotten a lot of my gigs. But this was the first time that someone Googled fight choreographer, found my website, found my phone number, and then gave me a call. And so I think recently, I have, looking back from where I started, I really have kind of progressed now that I've really kind of stopped trying to spread myself out with acting and stunts and fight choreography. Now that I'm really focusing on choreography, I feel like that's really kind of taken off a little bit more.
Hey, you went from like it's all in who you know to you're the guy to know. Like,
Yeah,
that's a big step. That's a big step. Yeah.
So-
And so it's just like, oh, wow, okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, congrats on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now the apprentice becomes the master.
Right.
Yes.
What's the biggest challenge that you see, like, or that you face in that line of?
Yeah, so the biggest problem I've noticed here in town, in Minnesota in particular, is budget. We got a lot of creative directors, but not the biggest pockets.
Yeah.
So a lot of times my job is like bringing the director off cloud nine and bring him back down to the ground and be like, no, we can't do that car hit.
Yeah.
You know, you're working on a $10,000 budget. That's your whole budget right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to do a car hit, that's your entire budget. So you have no more money left.
Right. No film. Just
no,
that scene.
Even $1 million projects can't get away with some good car stunts. It's
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
too
Here
much.
in town, Sally, it's still
Well, even in Hollywood, not just here.
right.
So,
Exactly. And just doing car stunts in general is so tricky. So that's why we kind of resort to camera tricks.
Yeah.
You know,
Which work?
they do.
Yeah.
You know, there was one that I was working on that wanted to do a car hit. I'm like, so I chatted with the DP. It's like, if we just do this shot here, this shot here, this shot here, and have the actor do these motions, it should edit together real nicely. And then sure enough, like it looked like got hit by a car.
Wow. Nice.
Actually, the car was stationary the entire time. It's just the actor just throwing themselves on the hood.
Right.
There's only one fall, which was on the back. So I did have the car move a little bit, but it was more like a foot.
Yeah.
So the actor was on the hood of the trunk of the car, and then I had a crash pad just like right underneath it, and two spotters just kind of on the side. So it was like a nice tight shot. So two spotters to kind of help throw the pad underneath it, and so the car just moved forward about like less than a foot, and the actor just toppled onto the pad. So then we see the actor fall off the hood. So we get it was a side view of hitting the hood, rolling on the top of the hood or the roof, and then the back view of the actor then falling off the trunk.
Okay.
And then it was a real quick pat away. Actor was in like a push-up position and then literally just popped off the ground and then belly flopped on the ground for the ending. And then we see taillights in the background
Wow.
or the car just driving off.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it worked.
I want to watch that now.
Yeah. What is that?
I don't remember. It was
Long time ago.
yeah, it was a really long time ago, and it was kind of one of those like out of the blue
Okay.
type of things that I really had to like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And so I think it was one of those projects that maybe didn't even get off the ground. It's
Oh,
probably
yeah.
still
Sure,
sitting on a desktop
Right.
because other things happened that didn't work.
That happens to films.
It does.
That's,
Yeah.
Most
that's a
films-
business.
Yeah. Most films don't make it out of post production.
No. So, but learning that, like after, you know, seeing all the footage that the DP got, I'm like, okay, I got a good system now for car hits.
Yeah.
And so that's part of my job is also learning what can we get away with. Stunts in a way is like a magic trick. So it's like, what optical illusion can we do that will simulate the same story without actually having to do with the practical?
Yeah.
Which in itself I think is fun. You know, trying to find those creative like little fun ways that the audience makes it think like they did this, and we're like, not really. Here's how we really did it.
Yeah.
Right. What are some of the coolest stunts you've done so far? Challenging or other?
Challenging
like-
stair falls. They hurt, regardless of how many pads you pad up. They still hurt.
Yeah.
You know, I can maybe do two, but then that third one, it hurts a lot. I did I guess if you want to call it like a seasonal promotional for the Minnesota Twins. It was like these two White Sox fans are trying to break into Target Field to steal the Twins' mojo. Because this was when like the Twins were like really hot, and then the White Sox were really bad. So as like a Christmas promotional, they're like, let's do this little bit for our season ticket holders and that kind of stuff. And so I played like one of these like corny Chicago White Sox fans trying to sneak in, and so me and another actor like we're sneaking around kind of like Home Alone style, and then TC Bear sets up like all these like booby traps for us, so we're getting pelted in the face by t-shirts. And then one stunt in particular that they really wanted was us slipping on baseballs.
Oh.
And so basically just like a
the fall.
big old banana peel slip,
Yeah.
back fall. And so I brought my kit, and I'm like, I was ready for it. And so it was one of those, for those type of hits, you just got to psych yourself up. Like, it's going to hurt. You have a gator bag, you have a tailbone pad on, you got elbows, you got knees on, but it's going to hurt. And so like action goes, and just like, I just like, just got in the zone, jump up in the air, land on the baseballs. Then they wanted part two was that we got up and then flipped again and then belly flopped.
Oh.
And I didn't have anything on my stomach.
Oh no.
So for that part, I'm like, okay, after I got up, I need to just find a baseball to put my foot onto, slip on, and where's the biggest opening I can find? And I'm like, this looks decent, and slip. And so like I had a big old like grapefruit size on my thigh, and like right here, like just outside of my my belly button on my stomach.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, what did you do? I'm like, I'm working.
Try to pay your bills.
Yeah. But like, and so it's one of those is like, if I, one and done, right? One and done. Like, that's what I was like psyching myself. Like, it's one and done. And so we did it, and the director, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was so great. That was awesome. And then the director's like, can we just do one more just for safety? And so in my head, I'm like, no. Like,
I knew it.
Like, but I'm like, outwardly, I'm like, yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Because I'm a stunt guy. That's what we do. You want 20 takes? I'll give you 20 takes. But inside here, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we can do this again.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's a difference between paying your bills and getting medical bills.
Exactly,
in
right?
addition.
Yeah. And so it's a very fine line for us stunt guys to like, okay, how far can I really take this?
Right.
But I don't like, it's that whole mentality like, I need to do this because they hired me for this, and I can't back out now because they told me all the terms and conditions.
Right.
So nothing surprising, so I can't back out of it. All right, let's do it. And so
Always more than one take.
there's always more than one.
Always.
Always more than one take. Always. Although surprisingly for Harbinger, like stunts was only like 2 or 3, and we did like,
Oh, that's not bad.
because it was supernatural type stuff, so levitation, slamming walls and stuff, and we only did it like maybe twice, and the director's like, great, moving on. And we're like,
Nice.
really? Like even Peter was like, Peter the stunt coordinator is like, are you sure, Will? Like Nandy can do 2 more.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, man, because like Nandy, who was the stunt double for the actress to do the wall slam, like she's like this 5'2" spunky Australian who lives out in LA now, and so she gets up, she's like, yeah, I'd love to do it again, man, that was so much fun, because like she was padded up, and so it didn't hurt at all, and because she hit correctly. And she's like, I got several more in me. And so, but Will's like, nope, we're good, man. Like, it looked fantastic. We're great. We're moving on. But we're all like, but we spent 6 hours rigging this thing. And now,
Half a day, huh?
right?
Or
And
more.
The one time you want to do more, they're like,
Right?
no.
And then it's like, that only took 10 minutes. And we're like, okay.
Right.
It's interesting because when you bring up like falls like that, it reminds me of like pro wrestling.
Yeah.
They have to fall right, otherwise you can't do it every night.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So
Yeah.
it's like,
And that's one thing, like, I really, like, the whole, like, WWE world, because I know how we do it in stage combat.
Yeah.
But it's like, what do they do? Like, what cues do they give each other? Like, what nonverbal communication do they do in their world? That,
Right.
like,
there's a lot.
yeah, that like,
There's, like,
I just want to like, I would love to just like sit down with The Rock or John Cena and be like, so what? Like,
Well,
what's
Yeah.
what they do is like sometimes you can see in old wrestling ones like they
Sure.
tap the right shoulder or something to let them know they're gonna fall on that side.
Oh, sure,
or,
sure. Yeah.
You know, when they're in an arm lock or something, and then how they reverse it. And
Oh,
all that.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like that would be a dream of mine to sit down with like those WWE guys.
Yeah.
And be like, so like, can you show me how the magic is done?
Right.
Like, even though like we do see it a little bit on TV, but it's like, no. Like, I really want to know like what goes into choreographing your matches. Like, how is that all done? Like, that's what I'm really fascinated about with that world in particular.
Never mind. You're gonna go. You had a
What?
question, and
No.
I hadn't structured mine yet, so you're
okay.
good.
We'll come to
I
it.
wasn't
We'll come
going
back to
that.
it.
Okay.
I'm gonna think about it, and then we'll pop it back in.
So we've gone over your biggest challenges. What are you most proud of like your body of work so far? Like what have you done thus far? That's kind of
so I really market myself as, and it's part of my tagline that I have on my website and even on my shirts that I've made for some of my stunt crew as a thank you. Because sometimes like I've had to do a couple gigs that like I couldn't really pay them like what they're really worth, and so I'm like,
right.
here's a T-shirt. Which like they're still really appreciative, and like a lot of them still wear it to this day, which is like,
That's awesome.
Thanks guys, that really means a lot. And so my tagline is storyteller of violence. That's something I really pride myself on, that I'm not someone that's going to come in and show you flashy moves and then cash my check.
That's exactly what I think of when I'm sure most people think of stuntmen as people on fire, car crashes, things like that.
And there are those guys too. Like they're there to do the utility stunts and that's it. They're not there to act. They're just there to like do the heavy hitting. I really pride myself, especially when I choreograph fights, is what is the story behind it. And what's the story that the director, the DP, or what's everyone trying to tell, and how can I create my piece to match that puzzle instead of like forcing my piece into that puzzle? Like how can I just set it right in there? So like I really analyze the script, I really analyze the characters and how they move and what they do. It's like your typical coming of age, high school film. And your character, whether it be, male, female, or non-binary, finally he's like, I'm going to stand up to my bully, and they get into a fight. Your hero or your main actor, and I use actor as kind of non-gender,
right?
Is not going to whip out Krav Maga. Or Kung Fu, right? It's a high schooler. Like, unless we've already established, like, they've taken Kung Fu classes, like, I will never choreograph, like, a little, like, coming-of-age tale, bully backyard fight with Krav Maga, Salat, or...
But wouldn't that be just so awesome?
It would be, though.
So unrealistic.
If we wrote it in that... our main character was taking those classes
secretly,
then okay, I could get away with it.
Yeah.
And then like, okay, I can dive in. But like, that's something that, how would a normal person fight is kind of how
Napoleon Dynamite that comes to mind.
Exactly, right?
Accurate.
And especially the teacher, you're right.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
I think I'm a loser because I go home to Starla every night. Forget about it.
Jesus. If there was one like actor for an action film, like Hollywood calls you, there's this huge action film happening. You're gonna be the stuntman, choreographer, everything.
Oh shit.
What actor are you hoping you get to work with? Like you get one.
Right now, I mean, mostly because he's hot, Keanu Reeves.
Okay.
Because like I watched a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and he puts in the work.
He really did.
And so like even the stunt coordinator is like, yes, finally, an actor who's willing to do it.
Yeah.
Who wants to put in the time and wants to like do it right. Who spends more time training in the fight than actually working on his lines.
Yeah.
Like those are the type of actors that we love. Like the ones that are like just dedicated and wants to put in the time, wants to put in the work, and just gets it. So Keanu Reeves for sure, because like watching him like just train nonstop, like 10 hours a day, whether it be like 4 hours in this, then 2 hours in this, another hour in this, like that was his weekly schedule. I mean, granted, I think. Ryan Reynolds would just be fun.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he would be one of the guys that like, he put in the work,
right.
But just we'll have some fun.
Funny.
It would be so funny, and we couldn't really get much done, but we would have a fun time doing it.
Yeah.
Well, what about like Tom Cruise now.
Right. Well, yeah, Tom Cruise. So how do we really feel?
How do you feel, Rohanna?
I just had like a typical female response to that name.
No,
so
that's
I apologize.
That's very fair. Yeah, I mean, Tom Cruise, I mean, he's in a league of his own. So it's kind of one of those things like he can't, like he'll just go do it himself. Like
He does. He does.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And
Except for after this last one with the whole stunt troubles.
oh, right. Yeah. When he broke his ankle and when he jumped from the roof and then broke his ankle
Mm-hmm.
and all this stuff and then kept going and then had to shut down production.
Yep.
You know, so like that's kind of where the line is like, you know, how far can we allow actors to really do their stunts? Like, yeah, it's great, you know, because it saves time on and money on, you know, the stunt double and that kind of stuff. And we as the audience get to actually see the actor as our main.
The back of his head.
Right, the back of
going
his head,
through that
right?
window.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's actually the back of his head.
Right.
I don't know. I just feel like he does the same thing in every single movie.
Yeah. It's,
Is there something you really want to do now more than ever for, I don't know, beyond just stunts? Or do you just see that?
I just kind of see that going down the road. You know, if I can keep doing stunt work till I'm, you know, old and gray, you know, being an elderly stunt double, I think would be fantastic. You know.
Do you foresee yourself staying here permanently and working in the Minnesota community as a stunt double, or like have you thought about like LA, New York, that kind of stuff?
So I do have a lot of roots here in Minnesota, which is kind of why I haven't really left. I grew up in Eagan, and now I live down in Prior Lake with my wife. And we have a bunch of family here, and family is very important to both of us. And so we're both really grounded here in Minnesota, but if a job in Chicago pops up, who am I to say no?
Right.
And so like even if it's, you know, a month or two here and there, like between my wife and I, we have that mutual respect and relationship that's like, yeah, you go do your, like she knows what I want to do and she knows like what it kind of takes.
Yeah.
So like a job in LA pops up. See you, babe. I'll be back in a month.
Back. Yeah.
If she's listening to this, is that true? You know, let's be honest.
Oh, it is. You know, because like
If Keanu Reeves calls him, he's going.
right, right.
That's happening.
Yeah. I mean, and because I mean that kind of actually happens now. Like when I travel to go teach at workshops, you know, the Summer Sling in New York or the Virginia Beach Bash down in Norfolk, Virginia, Tourist Trap in Florida, Carnage in the Corn in Iowa, and Winter Wonderland in Chicago.
What are these words?
So
They sound
all those words
wonderful.
They sound great.
Yeah,
but
so let me back up here a little bit. So through the Society of American Fight Directors, the SAFT, they all host in different cities, host various different regional workshops. So here in Minnesota, we have what's called the Brawl of America.
Of course we do.
Yep, and it's that one normally takes place around Memorial Day weekend. So it's a 2-day workshop, kind of a Saturday, Sunday. We bring in a fight master to teach various different workshops. We bring in several other different teachers and instructors from across the nation, or even international. Like this last year, we brought in Siobhan Richards from Toronto. She's one of the co-founders of a wonderful organization that I've now kind of started training with. It's called Intimacy Directors Intl. So now with the whole like, you know, Me Too movement and, you know, Not in Our House, big in Chicago.
Yeah.
IDI really focuses on choreographing intimacy scenes, whether it be from lovemaking to domestic violence to penetration rape.
Right.
And so now the thing is like, you know, in the past, you know I was a part of this as well as an actor where I had to do a kissing scene and the director's like, you two just go somewhere and work on that.
Right.
No, we can't do that anymore. So bringing in an intimacy director with those things has helped out so much within the community. Alicia Rodas in New York was another co-founder. She's been doing some phenomenal work. I forget what the TV show is, but she's been brought on multiple times on a TV show on Bravo to work those intimate scenes. And the energy, there's like a brief article that went out. I don't remember what it was called. But they interviewed a lot of the cast and crew and who've worked on other shows that had intimacy scenes before in the past, and they said like in the past, like it was so nerve wracking and tensions were so high. But now that Alicia's come in, the energy is just so much better and so much lighter, and it's not as awkward.
Yeah.
And it's not as tense anymore. And that's kind of how like we need to kind of approach those scenes about bringing somebody in for those types of scenes to make it okay for those actors. Because say, for example, your film that you're doing has a domestic violence in there.
Yeah.
And you hire this wonderful actress that you want to do the scene, but you don't know her past. You don't know if she actually is someone of domestic violence. And so therefore you're asking her to now do a scene that she now has to relive. So how do you deal with that? And so that's what the intimacy directors really focus on, is how do we then help train those actors and help keep them safe, both mentally, physically, and spiritually, while they're trying to do those scenes. I had an experience with the Minnesota Opera, and Minnesota Opera did a phenomenal job. The production was called Dead Men Walking, and I was asked to be, Dead Men Walking is kind of based on the book, and I think there's a movie as well about a man's kind of life in prison on death row. And so the opera starts off with the murder sequence, and so it's two young lovers in a passion scene of lovemaking, and then Joseph and Anthony DeRoche, myself and the baritone, come in drunk, high, and we kill the boy, and then we rape the girl. And that's all on stage. And so Doug Carlton Schultz was the fight choreographer for that. And so both he and I sought out IDI for that. We're like, hey, so we're doing this thing. And Alicia Rodas is like my big sister. I've worked with her a lot. I love her so much. And she's just been a wonderful person to reach out for and just kind of lean on and ask questions. And so we met up at Winter Wonderland in Chicago, and she kind of gave me like a one-on-one lessons and techniques and that kind of stuff. So then I was able to bring that into Dead Men Walking, keeping all four of us safe while we're kind of performing that highly intense scene. Like the audience was like in shock, but the four of us, like, we were fine.
You knew every step. Everybody knew what was about to happen.
We knew like nothing changed. Everything was the same every single night. We knew our limits. We knew our limitations. We knew where our hands were supposed to go. We knew the actions. And so like as long as we did X, Y, and Z and all this stuff, we could do it every single night. Yes, it was taxating. It wore our bodies down a lot. So each of us had a very different what's called an out. So like after the scene's done, like what do? Just take yourself out, leave it on the stage. Right. Because in the past, like sometimes what might happen is that the actor then holds on to it. Yeah. Because they don't know how to get rid of it. And so then it wears on them and it just builds and it just festers a little bit more. Sure. And so then, part of the technique is just how do you just leave it? Leave it on stage or leave it on set and not take it with you. And so that's kind of where my new training has kind of been diving down as another like a tool implement as a fight choreographer. Because I've had to do a couple domestic violence scenes before I knew about IDI. And then looking back, it's like, okay, I did some things correct, but like, okay, there's definitely some things that I need to change. But now with that type of training, I know exactly how to really make the space safe for not only the two actors, but the whole entire cast and crew as well.
Right. That is so phenomenal.
Great. Yeah. I think it's a huge movement. The organization is only 2 years old, but they made a huge splash. Tony Asina, who's the head co-founder of it, like she's constantly traveling across the nation right now, teaching workshops, and Siobhan Richards and Alicia, they're both kind of like going back and forth throughout the country. So we had Siobhan Richards here in Minnesota do a workshop, and then for the Shakespeare Festival down in Winona, Tonya came to town that I was able to help out and assist her in that as well. Oh, cool. So it won't be the last time. So if you're listening and you're looking and you want these type of workshops, intimacydirectorsinternational.org, and then they'll kind of post on like when workshops, and we as a community of fighters, like we love this stuff. And so like it won't be the last time that we'll definitely have them back to teach like another workshop. Because like we even mentioned it with the Minnesota Alliance theater board. They had like a little town hall meeting about sexual harassment in the workplace. And so I was asked to represent IDI as like an ambassador and kind of speak on their behalf and like what do they do, and here's what we can do, and here's what we're trying to go down the road. Like, yes, these are the ways of the past, but let's learn, and here's our new way of how we want to approach these types of scenes.
That's really great. So have you noticed a change locally at all since the Me Too, My Time's Up movement, all that?
Yeah, I have noticed some. It's slower.
Because you're kind of behind the scenes. You get to kind of you have time in between things. Usually,
so I've noticed the younger generation has adapted to it immediately. Once the Me Too movement, all that stuff, and they learned about and some people I've come across is like, yeah, I heard about Intimacy Directors International and all that stuff and the training and that kind of thing. So the younger generation has really grasped onto that. It's the older generation that we're finding it's a little bit harder to adapt to those new ways because they've been doing it for so long that I need to now actually bring someone in for these intimate scenes, even though I've been directing them for years, but you've been directing them the wrong way.
Right.
You're now putting more harm on those actors.
Exactly.
And so eventually it's all going to change, and especially with the Harvey Weinstein and all that stuff, the people of power that shouldn't be, they're eventually going to get weeded out. And so then we have an opportunity to really change the way that we want to really make it better, to make it the industry that we want it instead of the way that it was.
Absolutely. I think that's huge. I'm really glad that you talked about that here. I think that's something that everyone listening involved in the film community here should really take note of, and because there's a lot of scenes I've been involved in scenes like that where it's it's awkward and you're this isn't is this really what we're supposed to be doing here? What's going on? And so knowing that there's somebody out there who's hey, this is a way to do this properly, let us help you. I think that is amazing.
Exactly. And so then and part of the technique that they talk about is instant chemistry. So then how do you get, you just met this person and now I have to do this intimate scene with them.
Yeah.
So it's about okay. And a lot of times, we as actors, you can put your hands on my body wherever you want, but it's the vice versa. It's I don't know where to put my hand. I don't want to put my hands in a place that it's going to make you feel uncomfortable.
Right.
So part of the technique is where's it okay to place my hands? What's okay? What's not okay? And so it's just creating that map together of that road when it comes to those types of scenes.
Right.
For sure.
Well, that's awesome.
Well, Tom, what's next for you here in
let's
2019,
see. 2019. So I'll actually be in a Minnesota Opera's production of Silent Night.
Wow.
It's the armistice or the ceasefire between the Brits and the Germans during World War I around Christmas time, hence where the song Silent Night kind of came from. And so I'll be one of the fighters and fight captain for that one. Doug Carlton Schultz would be the choreographer for that. So that's on the theater side. And then film side, late September, October, there's another film that I'll be kind of working as a weapons tech coming up down the road.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
Nice. I have to check out the opera.
Yeah,
find you in there.
Where can people find your work or contact you now?
Yeah, contact me. I have a website. I believe it's just Tom Ringberg, fightdirector.com, Wix. It's a Wix website. And then the little button, I'll send you to my email, and then phone number if you wish to give me a call or leave me a little comment on my website is there. I also have a Facebook page, Tom Ringberg /stunt choreographer. Almost takes up the entire line. But you can like that page and reach me out to there via that way. And so, I kind of posted some stuff that I've done, some behind the scenes, and just kind of some of my other works more on kind of social media.
Absolutely.
Last question before we wrap up.
Sure.
What do you want people to remember about you the most? What do you want?
I guess I'm just really passionate about this line of work. And so I guess if you want to call it a plug, if you want to hire me, I'm here to really help you tell your story. That's what I'm really, and I've gotten in arguments with other fight choreographers, like other guys who call themselves choreographers, who just like, it's all about the flashy moves. Like, no, it's not about the flashy moves. I'd rather see someone, like for death scenes, for example, I would rather watch someone try to survive and fail than just what's called giving up the ghost. Right? I'd rather watch someone try to survive their hardest by any means necessary than doing flashy moves.
Right. Great. Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tom,
No problem.
for
Thank you,
taking the
guys.
time and hanging out with us.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Yeah, it's been fascinating getting to know you.
Yeah, likewise.
And I look forward to finding more of your work and keeping track of you. And that sounded creepy. You know what I mean. You totally know what I mean. I think what you do is really fascinating,
Thank you.
it's been awesome having you here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for listening to our podcast.
We appreciate you joining in.
We run a show every other week.
And if you are in film and are interested in being on the show with us and being our guest, you can reach us in a few different places. We do have an email. It is filminminnesota@gmail.com, as well as on Instagram or Facebook. Our name is, believe it or not, Film in Minnesota. So thanks for joining in.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.